Hi. Today's sales thought of the day has to do with negotiation. Negotiation is a hot topic. It's in sales, it's the probably the star of the sales process. However, it's going on all the time in our life, whether we're in sales, whether we're in customer service, whether we're accounting, no matter what we do, we're really negotiating throughout our day and throughout our life. Some examples when we're negotiating that we maybe realize we're negotiating would be automotive, purchases, homes, salary negotiations. There's times though that we don't realize we're negotiating, we really are, and that'd be whether it's our friends or family where we're going to dinner for the Saturday night, to bedtimes, or getting your children to eat their vegetables. You're in a negotiation more than you think. Being good in negotiations would be an important skill to pick up, wouldn't it? In fact, Harvey Mackay, he said, you don't get what you want, you get what you negotiate. Again, a skill that we should all be picking up. Let's transition, though, into today's debate or today's paradox about negotiation, and that is, who should go first? Should it be you or should it be the other guy? General rule of thumb tells you that you should let the other party go first in negotiation. Why? Well, they may be willing to pay less or charge less than what you were thinking originally, so it'd be a good idea to let them go first. And that would be in a situation where you don't have a lot of information about the party's willingness to pay or willingness to charge. There's another time, though, that it might be a good idea for you to go first. And before we talk about that in depth, let's first talk about where that came about. Back in the 70s and 80s, two economic psychologists, Amos Tversky and Kahneman, studied cognitive biases. They studied all these different biases. We could do lessons each week on their particular biases. Today, though, we're going to talk about the bias of anchoring. So anchoring says this. Let me read you the definition, or let me read you what they found out about it. And that is, they said that the benefit of making the first offer is it acts like an anchor. Anchoring is a well-documented cognitive bias that describes the human tendency to rely too heavy on that first piece of information that they're being offered, or the anchor. The initial piece of information makes biases, and their expectations are subconsciously worked on when somebody makes that first offer or makes that anchor. So what happens is this, really simply, if I make the first offer, really what happens throughout that negotiation, you're managing my expectations because I threw an anchor out there of an expectation. Let's give some examples. So some examples of when we should go first or when we should let the other party go first. So in general, you let the other party go first when you don't have any information about the subject. A good example would be salary negotiations for a new position that your company has developed. So it's a new position. No one's ever had this position before. You're not able to go online or ask your coworkers what they were being paid, or what approximately, ask HR what that job pays, or what salary is for that job. So it'd be a good idea to let the other party go first, because a lot of it's going to be based on your value and their thinking of how you fit in that position. So that'd be a good example to let them go first. An example where you would want to go first would be automotive dealer would want to go first because they could anchor, and they do actually go first in most situations by anchoring with either the used car market price or an MSRP, or suggested market price, for the new vehicle. That would be a good example of that. And why? Because they've got a pretty good idea, and you've got a pretty good idea of what they're going to be charging for that vehicle. And they've got a pretty good idea of what your willingness is to pay for that vehicle. Because of that information, it would behoove them to go first and anchor. So if you do let somebody go first, however, then you can fall victim to being anchored. The question then becomes, how do you avoid being anchored? You don't want to be anchored. Well, before we go into my 3 steps to avoid being anchored and help yourself in these situations, I just want to say this. The fact that you're watching this video and that you know now about the cognitive bias of anchoring, you're ahead of the game. You're halfway there. You're halfway ahead of the battle. You're halfway home just right there by knowing and being aware. There's also 3 steps that you want to use to help you avoid being anchored and to help you in that situation. So the first step is First, seek to understand the other party. Seek first to understand. And there's 3 steps in this. First, go ahead and do what they call a cold read of the situation. So let me give the example. The example is that you had an MSRP on this vehicle of $35,000. You marked it down already once to $30,000, and now it's the end of the year and you've got your super blowout Christmas special price of $30,000. So you started it at what I say 40, then to 35, and now we're at $30,000. And the guest offers you $20,000, and you know as a dealer that the vehicles, the invoice is well above that price, and probably so does the customer or the guest too. They've probably been able to find the what those vehicles are going for, or maybe even the invoice. They're out there. The prevalence of the internet information out there provides them with quite a bit of info to go on. So what you'd want to do is, rather than stating your point and discussing right away why they're wrong or why they should pay a higher price, let them talk. Seek first to understand. Do a cold read. A cold read would be, it seems like, or it looks like, or it sounds like. It sounds like you're a little bit below, or quite a bit below, the market price of what these vehicles are being sold for on the retail market here in this area. And then be quiet. You ask it as more of a statement. It's a cold read. And that way it's not a question. It's really, you're not accusing them. You're not saying, hey, you're a lot lower than what you really should be, or whatever people are paying for these. You just calmly let them know, it seems like you're a little bit lower than what these vehicles are going for based on market prices. Be quiet. They'll hopefully expound on it and give you some more information. If they don't, or if they do, you want to follow it up with a question. And I would tell you this, avoid the why question and use a how or a what type of question. Why just seems like you're accusing them of something. Why would you come up with $20,000? Why did you offer that? Because I want to save money, right? That's what they would tell you. Well, what you want to do is ask a how or a what question. Just say to them, how did you arrive at that figure of $20,000? What was the information that you used to arrive at the figure of the $20,000? You're just asking questions. So that is the second part to step 1. And then the third part to step 1, the third part's really important. And that is, you need to listen. You've got 2 ears and you've got 1 mouth, so use them in proportion. Listen to them, and I would tell you this, listen without thinking of what you're going to say next. Just listen. Step 2 is justify. How you justify your position depends on what they said. So again, you have to have an open mind, and being able to ask them these questions and do that cold read gives you a better idea of how you're going to answer this. So let's say that they had told you, hey, look, I just know this. I know it's the end of the year. I know you've already discounted it twice, and that you want to get rid of these because you've got the new model year. It's 2020 model years are out there. This is a 2019. It's already almost 2020. So I know you want to get rid of these vehicles. Well, again, now you've got some idea of what they're basing this on. So you could justify your position with third-party data. You could say, hey, you know what? We've got some third-party data that shows what these are going for. I can show you what our cost is on this vehicle. Your offer is well below that cost. I just wouldn't be able to sell it for that. It wouldn't be a good business decision for us. We wouldn't be able to provide you with the service that you would want at that particular price. So that would be a way to justify it. Again, the justification step 2, after you do step 1, which is seek to understand, step 2, a lot of that's going to depend on the answers you get in the first part. So step number 3 is to reclose. And step number 3 is going to be the same in just about every situation. Now, when it comes to a high ticket item, a great closing question is an either or question that asks a minor point that carries with it a large decision. Minor point that carries with it a large decision. An example would be this. After you've first understood their position and then you've justified yours, you would close with the either or question of, what would you like to drink, a pop water or a coffee, while we go ahead and finish up the paperwork? That asks really them to purchase the car without asking them to purchase the car, because they know when they select one of those 3 beverages that you're going to proceed with writing the offer or writing up the purchase order. That way they don't have to have that weird feeling of yes or no. It takes away the yes or no question and asks an either or question centered around a minor point that carries with it a large and a big decision. That'd be a great way. So just in summary, the ways to avoid being anchored are 1, seek first to understand. 2, justify your position. 3, reclose with an either or question. In conclusion, remember what we talked about at the top. That was Harvey Mackay's quote, which is, you don't get what you want, you get what you negotiate. Therefore, negotiation is an important skill, whether you're selling cars, homes, or whether you're just negotiating bedtimes or where you're going to go to dinner. It's an important skill to pick up. I hope that the information you got today helps. Thank you.